Come our tide, and welcome to Shift+F1, a podcast about speedy race cars. That, by the way, is Dutch for cucumber time.
Cumcumber?
Come our tide. Yep. It refers to the, amazingly, there is a, and I might have done this one before because it's just so perfect. Come tide refers to the quiet summer period when nothing much happens.
Oh, that's fantastic. You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
How did you?
Name.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this one before.
We have had
I think it's fresh.
our fair share of cucumber time recently. But now it is time for these cars to get back to racing. I'm Drew Scanlon. Joining me, Danny O'Dwyer. How are you, Danny?
I'm doing good. I spent the week in the land of Checo Perez, Mexico, enjoying some pool time, enjoying some beautiful cocktails, and I am ready to be back in the world of racing. It was a short break, but it felt like eternity.
Speaking of men of leisure, Rob Zachney is here too. How are you, Rob?
Well, not too bad. I enjoyed the break, but I'm restored and ready to go racing. Well, ready to watch people go racing.
If you're new to this podcast, a very warm welcome to you. And if you are new to Formula One itself, we recommend listening to our preseason primer episode, which assumes no prior F1 knowledge and explains how the sport works and who everybody is. So if you'd like to go back and listen to that, it's episode 216. Also, this I changed up the wording on this a little bit.
Did
See if you can tell. The show would not be possible without our audience over at patreon.com/shiftf1, where every month we release bonus podcasts and videos exclusively for our patrons that cover racing documentaries and films, F1 video games, experiments with other racing series, and a lot of weird things. So if you would like to support the show and get access to all that fun stuff, head over to patreon.com/shiftf1 or click the link in the show notes. What's going to be going on this month, Danny?
we are taking a dive into the wonderful world of anime, partly because we had so much fun with our initial toe dip into the world of anime with Redline.
Yeah.
We had such a good time there. And also in support of the ongoing strikes that are happening here in the West with human American people who make movies. We thought, why not support them by diving into the world? It's a great excuse to go check out some Initial D, which is perhaps the most talked about motorsport, what would we say, media property? It could be, like, outside of the Fast and Furious, I guess. Initial D is huge. It's such a long-running manga series. It's had loads of TV shows and movies and video games.
It affected the car market. Like, at least in Gran Turismo's telling, like, the cars that are featured in Initial D sold better. Like, there was a meaningful impact on the sales of, what was it? Like, is it Integra that the main character does?
Yeah. Yeah, I do feel like there has always been that subcurrent, that current, and growing up in Ireland, like, that type of, like, boy racer stuff was always kind of there, because it was like an approachable level of, like, cartooning. I think you didn't have to be like super rich. You could get like a little hot hatch and sort of do stuff. I mean, that's not necessarily Initial D, but I feel like Initial D did a lot of work to keep the engine running, you know, in between the big beats of certain movies and things like that. Was it the patrons or the Discord people who eventually helped us pick what to watch?
It was Discord. So we proposed to them, do we go with the show or do we go with the animated films? Because there's an animated film that covers like the first part of the manga, which is also what the first season of the show does, I think. And they were like, yeah, just watch the show. So we're gonna do the first 5 episodes of Initial D First Stage, I think it is called.
It was subsequently called First Stage because they did Second Stage, but it was originally it was just Initial D on its own. So yes, the first 5 of those, which we'll be watching on Crunchyroll, I guess. Is that where we're going to check that out?
Where you can find it.
Where you can find it, cool.
There are many.
No sponsorship from Crunchyroll here. Yeah. Yes, some of the places we find these movies also are quite suspect. Although I will say Redline was literally a Blu-ray sent by a listener, so that was a great experience for me.
Maybe go out there and buy some used DVDs.
Check him out, or just read the manga and tell us if it sounds about the same.
There you go,
but yes, we'll be doing that. And before I get to the beautiful title sponsors, should we talk about the other aspect of
Yes.
funding that is now coming our way on this new era of Shift+F1?
We've made some mid-season, some summer break deals. Silly season started.
We have.
You may have heard at the top, or maybe not if we've screwed something up. Or actually, I don't even know how this works. There may be ads. Advertisements.
Formula One.
Maybe you've seen them on the side of race cars.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you've seen them plastered all over the sport, and without throwing anyone under the bus, aggressively applied to most podcasts in this particular subgenre of iTunes.
Oh my god.
We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
We did a little market
we
research.
did like a.
I was like, would it be weird? Would it be weird if we put ads on the show? And I was like, indeed, no, it would not.
It would be. It would not even be weird if we put like 80 ads on the show.
Yes.
But we have integrity. Like we waited. Like we didn't want to be greedy, so we waited for like podcast ad rates to apparently like go down. At least in some of the stories I'm reading, and like now that it is maybe a slightly less lucrative prospect than it would have been over the past 3 years. Now we feel like it's the time to
I mean,
get
over
in
the
there.
past 8, what are we on? Episode
9?
239, which
It's not even
as you
counting
said,
Alt F1.
Yeah, doesn't even count the original version of the show. So
First
we are
stage.
waiting quite a while to sell out. But I will say, the spreadsheet we went through where we basically ticked off all of the payday loans, pills,
Oh my God.
pills for parts of your body, and so on.
I had a brief
I'm gonna pull
moment
this
where I was
up.
terrified that was all the advertising categories.
Me too.
And I was like, oh my
Me
god,
too.
oh my god, it's only bad. It's only bad stuff. It's only bad.
It's like we have to pick whether or not we go with the penis pills or the petrochemical companies was another one.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
Oh, he's adding them up.
6, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31.
Are these all the
It's like, let me see here. So in the back end, you can choose what category of ad that you don't want to have appear on your show. You can't do
Opt-out.
brand specific, but you can do category of ad. We have 27 categories that we selected not to do.
That's out of how many?
Like
28.
630.
Okay, that's still a sizable
Which means some
chunk.
stuff
It
might
would be very
slip
funny. That's
yeah.
true.
So if you do hear something, let us know.
Let us know. Yeah, it'd be funny if you could do it by brands, because then we could untick everyone except Daniel Ricciardo, and so
I will say
any
this,
of
by
his
the way.
like
Just because we had this crop up a lot with Waypoint, I've always kind of felt weird about it. There's a lot of times where people would write in and being like, I heard an ad and I don't like this company. And that's like, and like sometimes they're real shitheads that like crop up in those places. But the weird thing is, I've always sort of felt like, are we at that point also assisting targeting for the ads, right? Like, I always thought it was funny that like the military would try to recruit on a Waypoint podcast, because that is recruiting budget money just wasted. Like, I am like 95% sure
down the toilet.
that the Waypoint audience is not like, damn, I could be an airman. And just race off to the Air Force recruiting station. And I've always sort of wondered whether it's actually the most effective thing to be like, and I don't think the military should be advertising to audiences. And it's like, yeah, but I don't know if advertising the Waypoint audience was a net harm, really. So that's the one thing I would sound out is I've always sort of wondered about that particular threshold. There's some things where do we like every company to be, appearing on an ad? Probably not. Is it kind of funny that their ad would be appearing on a podcast?
Yeah, I'm gonna listen.
One?
I'm gonna try and
I'm so
see
curious.
it. I want to see if it's like Pep Boys or if it's like Taco Bell. I have no idea. It'll probably just be other weirdnesses. But
So at least for the beginning, they or what the plan currently is to not have us read them. So they will
Yes.
just be dynamically slotted in. So we won't see them before they go. This is really kind of the only control that we do. We can set the price floor as well. So we maybe do some tweaking there. Yeah. The thing is, like, I never hear podcast hosts talk about their ads in this way. So I'm just excited to like learn some of this and reveal behind the curtain of what kind of thinking goes on. So
it's trickier than you think. Like we said from
yeah.
the start over at Remap that we were going to do ads, and it took a surprising amount of time to figure out the implementation for that.
Oh yeah,
and it's still
Drew's
kind of an
done
ongoing
so much
project.
Work. Yeah, Drew's done so much work in over the past while to like, because this also is part of us migrating also our entire podcast database going back years now to a new service, because the old service was causing me a lot of issues as well. So it's been a lot during the summer break. We weren't just taking the time. Well, I was in Mexico getting a stomach virus, but Drew was doing a lot of work. So
yeah. So if there's any weirdness, let us know. We'll try to set you up. But also worth noting, Danny, I think I know where you're going with this.
Yes, it is ad-free on Patreon. So we'll be posting the episodes to Patreon every week. We have always used Patreon for the bonus episodes. That feed now will also have ad-free versions of the podcast. So if you want ad-free and support the show, head over to patreon.com/shiftf1. If you're already a patron, just plug that RSS feed into your podcast thing of choice, and you will have access to the podcast at the same time as everyone else without the ads.
And hey, if you're sitting there being like, is the Patreon not doing well? Like, why are you doing this? No, that's fine. It's just things are a little turbulent out there at times, and have been a bit turbulent this year.
Really, Rob? Yeah.
Yeah. And so diversifying income streams, like just hedging bets a little bit about how things might play out. Always a good policy. Like, for instance, you never know what might drop out of the blue on you. For instance, today I was on a stream, and in the middle of that, I learned that my wife and I are being assessed $16,000 for repairs to our condo building.
Oh, no.
Not that we did, like, everyone in the building owes 16 large for
oh my God.
like some storm damage from this winter. And like that's just something you don't really expect to crop up. And at that point, it's like, more money. Useful for them goods and services.
It's one of the things about a Patreon which is the weirdest, because I've also been running my main income source is my documentary video game stuff, is that like, because it's sort of you kind of, your brain, because of the anxiety of it, you want to just imagine it's just a salary and it's always going to be there and it's okay, and you want to focus on the work and not have to worry about it. But the problem is stuff happens in life and stuff happens to it every once in a while, and then suddenly you're like grabbing the wheel again. You've woken up, on your cross-country truck driving mission, and then you're like, oh God, yeah. So I think it's a way to make sure that like all of us in good times and bad have that little bit more protection going on. And I don't feel too bad about the fact that we ran this thing ad-free. I mean, we ran it Patreon free for years as well, so it's I think as long as we don't become one of those podcasts that has a shed load of ads, I think that's the thing that was really important to all of us. So yeah.
And an option to have an ad-free version. That's
for sure.
Important too.
Yeah.
Speaking of Patreon.
Absolutely, and all of our incredible title sponsors: Agave, ATX, Cyphus Training, Turf SCS, Alex Medina, Kikaha of the Art, at Team Blackjack, Michael Maves, Gordy's Army, at Talking Autos, Olivia Evans, TelemetryDeck.com, FTC, Drew Stewart, Bailey Foot, Abdullah Al-Thani, Jason Chadwick, Abraham Getchell, The Space Above Us podcast. Bunny Fiend is now an annual member. Thanks, Bunny Fiend.
Nice.
Anyone out there can become an annual member at a discount. Snigs, Alex Goucher, Max Faltar, Circuit Demon, Troy Stammer, Umberto Rocca, William Rompf, Irvine Clinical Research, Lachlan the Maddened Man, and Jason Kelly. Thank you all so much. Let's talk about F1.
Yes, let's. We have a lot of news to get to. Rob, why don't you start our F1 news off with some IndyCar?
Or is it F1 news? This was... I think this all unfolded like literally right after we went on break. The break started, and what we learned was that Alex Palou announced, or maybe it was McLaren basically announcing that they'd learned this. But either way, okay, flashback last year, Alex Palou, one of like probably the best and like most successful young driver in IndyCar right now, like won a championship 2 years ago. Is off to an historically great start. Well, pretty deep in the season, but it's been an historically great season for him this year. But a couple of years ago, he was looking to jump from the Chip Ganassi racing team to McLaren McLaren, as we know, it has the F1 operation, but under Zach Brown has kind of diversified and is now across a lot of motorsports and has a pretty significant IndyCar racing program. Palou wanted to jump to McLaren, and the Ganassi team announced that they were extending him for another year. And Palou went on Twitter and blew that up. He said, without my knowledge, they've announced this, and I have no intention of racing with Chip Ganassi in this year, 2023. I will be driving for McLaren. So this hangs over the entire season last year, and what emerges from that is Ganassi has him under contract. McLaren, he's not going to be able to make this move to McLaren no matter how badly he wants to, and nobody's going to give ground. Ganassi's not going to give him up. So this is the last dance year for Palou and Ganassi, and that's going to be it. And then he's going to go off to McLaren. And there's always been the F1 pipeline lurking in the background of this is like part of the sales pitch. We don't know exactly what the sales pitch is with McLaren between McLaren and Palou, but one of the theories is that he saw through them, and it may have been implied that was a gateway for him into F1. Now, had they also done a bit of that with Patricio O'Ward, that appears to have been the case. But as we know, like Zach Brown, in terms of talent scouting and business opportunity scouting, like plays the field a bit. So this year, it is the last dance. It's time for the last shot at the another title. Chip Ganassi pulls off to a great start, and then a few weeks ago, we learn that Palou has decided he's not going to honor that contract with McLaren. And by the way, it does sound like there is a contract. This isn't a weird what are the contracts what is implied here? What's real? This doesn't sound like a Piastri situation. It sounds like there was a contract, and before there was a contract, a pretty clear understanding. There's also stories. The indication is that McLaren gave him an advance on his salary for a long-term contract that would run through 2026. So he comes out and he says, "I have no intention of racing with McLaren," and it sounds like he wants to stay with Chip Ganassi. So that's quite the explosive turn of events, and it's so explosive that the next thing that happens is his management company fires him as a client. Effectively,
you're kidding?
No, they bail on him. So he was represented by Monaco Increase Management, and apparently he went rogue on this and reneged on the contract that firm negotiated with McLaren, and so they just broke things off with him. They don't represent him anymore. McLaren, this week it looks like, initiated legal proceedings in the UK against Palou. It seems like it's mostly targeting. There's the breach of contract issue, but it doesn't seem like they're going to try to force him to honor the contract. It seems like one of those things where it's going to be like there's damages and we want the money back. But it doesn't. According to Marshall Pruitt's reporting on this, and he's generally pretty plugged into what's going on the Indy paddock, McLaren or not, this is not like Chip Ganassi last year fighting to make sure that Palou's ass stayed in the seat racing for them. This is done. Like the Palou-McLaren relationship is wiped. This is about damages and recompense. So we come to, why did all this happen? What is Palou's game plan here?
Yeah,
we don't know. Like that, I know reveal.
Is there some like fifth, 7-dimensional chess going on here, or is he just like a young guy who just does not know how to say no to somebody, or is it's because it just seems like woeful mismanagement, and the fact that he's like sacked his management team has sacked him would indicate that, like, is he difficult to manage, or
clearly difficult to manage, right? Like to an extent, like this kind of is borne out by what we've observed. But the thing think about this. if you're a talent representation team, you don't have a career in the way that an athlete does. You're dealing with people year on, year out. Like your time horizon is forever.
You're right.
Alex Palou is one of the best drivers in the world right now. Like genuinely,
right now.
IndyCar is a spec series for the most part. Like, yes, they run different, car engines and such, but like you don't have like what's happened with Mercedes these past several years and with what's happening with Red Bull right now. This is not a series that is built for that. Palou is dominating that series in a way that has not been done since Mario Andretti. This is we throw generational talent around a lot in sport, but he might be a generational talent, and his time might be now, right? Like he might actually be about at the peak of his powers. So as flaky as all this seems, and as like uncommitted as it all seems, this is a guy who has all the cards. He is one of the best in the world. Who gives a shit what he signed? Who cares what he promised? Like he is one of the best in the world right now. You would be a fool to commit yourself to a long-term contract that does not honor that value that you're going to bring and maximizes your potential. And so I think there's a couple things in play. Chip Ganassi's been a great team for him. Like they set that car up week in, week out, and he kicks ass in it. That's been a good partnership, and it was even when things were at their worst with that team. Moving to McLaren in IndyCar doesn't look to be as sure a bet, but also I do wonder if lurking in the background here, there is McLaren's pretty committed to Piastri and Norris. It doesn't really look like there's going to be a near-term opportunity opening up there. They're contemporaries of his. So cut that line, jettison it, because why let McLaren be the person that, like, the team that bargains your future in F1 if you're going to have one? Because I would bet you somebody else on that F1 paddock is looking what Palou is doing and being like, that's our guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it seems like maybe the problem was that initial flirtation with McLaren in the first place. It was like overly eager, it was too early. Who knows, maybe the past season has, obviously it's like changed the chessboard a little bit, but yeah, maybe that I can't. It goes back to the conversations we had about that initial deal of like, what was the point of that then if it wasn't to get more money out of Chip Ganassi on the next contract? It didn't seem to be. It seemed to be more sort of dial or more concrete than that. So yeah, I don't know. It makes sense, I guess, at this stage, and you just take the hit on the money side, and you can make it up in the next deal, wherever you end up. But I always still worry about, like, with the way F1 pipelines are now with these young drivers, like, who was the last great Indy prospect we had come over?
JPM?
Was it like Rossi or someone, or who?
Juan Pablo?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, always exciting when you're talking about Alex Palou. Will be great to see how this one shakes out. Also, very fun to watch these days. Anyone fired from Renault?
Right.
Yeah. So Otmar Safnauer is unleashed. He can speak his mind. He was posting pictures on Instagram. Has
he started a podcast yet? He's gonna.
Well, he was on what amounts to a podcast on Sirius XM's Cars and Culture show.
Lovely.
But I will say I love, like, F1. You know what happens in F1 during the summer? All the drivers go to their beach spots and such. It's all glamour. Otmar did the same thing. Looks like he went to Traverse City, Michigan. If I'm reading my Michigan coastline right. He gets down on the beach as well, just like the rest of the high flyers in F1. But yeah, he went hammer and tongs on Renault as an organization and his experience working with them, and the main takeaway is that in his telling, Renault, the big automotive company, wanted to run that racing team. I don't know if he's really talking about like simply Laurent Rossi, or if he felt it was if he's using the two interchangeably. It seems like he felt there was a bureaucracy issue that really was a sort of corporate culture thing, which was that to an unprecedented degree in his experience, Renault wanted major operational components of the F1 team running through the corporation, not through Safnauer,
right,
but through the company. And he cites in particular finance, marketing, and HR.
Oh, you're kidding. God, it's just everything's gonna take forever.
Well, think about like when things really turned for him, right? It's Piastri never got that contract.
Oh my God! Of course.
So,
oh my God!
It went to okay. It's not okay at all, because if you're going to hire somebody and you got to get a contract out within a day, because that's what we do in F1, you can't take 2 weeks. If it takes you 2 weeks, maybe that special hire went somewhere else. You've got to be hired.
God! Wow! Read between the lines, eh? Jeez.
And then he said in the end it was DeMeo who was like, no, we need faster success in F1. You don't have 100 races. We just need to move on. But this is the thing we've been wondering about since last year. Who owned the screw up?
Yeah.
With the contracting over there. And unless Safnauer is like just nakedly lying, it was Renault. That the reason, and now it makes all the sense in the world, right? Because we've all worked for companies like this. You guys worked with CBSI, for God's sake. But it's like
trying to book a plane somewhere, and you have to like go through 58 different weird websites that are all tied to your credit card.
Anytime you have to like get a special contract together for somebody or arrange payment for somebody, and it's like submit it to this department. And if that, like, even if you have people in the pipeline who can flag, like, hey, this thing really needs to be attended to quickly, that only makes it go so fast. So can you imagine, like, is this really the story of, like, what happened with Piastri and with, they were kind of dithering on Alonso's contract. Alonso said, I think, at some point, he was also expecting, progress toward
Alonso,
contract.
Same thing. Yeah.
And, like, why was everything so slow? And the other thing is, imagine this, in the F1 world, if things are taking a weirdly long time, you're being stabbed in the back.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, whereas it's actually just Zach Brown writing a letter and putting it in the pneumatic tube and hoping that it gets.
But basically like submitting it to this massive bureaucratic like automotive firm and being like, "Hey, could you please hire this F1 driver we need?" And it's like, "Yeah, we'll get to that as soon as we like process some claims or something."
Wild.
Wow. Well, speaking of legal challenges,
let's check in on our good friend Felipe Massa, the interim title belt for the 2008 Formula One World Championship. So if you didn't know about this already, the 2008 championship was a controversial one because of something called, well, it was a controversial season, not because of who won, but because of one race in particular, the Singapore Grand Prix Crashgate, where Nelson Piquet Jr. Crashed intentionally to basically help Alonso secure the points, the first place in that race by instigating a safety car. It was a huge debacle back in the day. It resulted in bannings for certain drivers and team principals and all that sort of stuff. There was a recent Bernie Ecclestone interview back in March where he said that they had talked about basically wiping the points off that race, and if they had done that
at the time,
that like during that whole proceeding, which would have meant that Felipe Massa, who has subsequently become probably the most man, it's a shame that guy never won an F1 championship driver certainly in recent history, it would have meant that he would have secured the 2008 championship. So a couple of months back, we heard that Massa heard this interview. It got back to him somehow, and that he might be making some sort of legal claim against it. So Autosport's reporting an update on this one. Quoting Autosport, after assembling a legal team, Massa has now sent a so-called letter before claim to the FIA and FOM, which sets out the details of the case the Brazilian intends to pursue in court. According to the document, which Autosport has had access to, Massa's defense alleges that the Brazilian was a victim of a conspiracy, with the FIA and FOM deliberately failing to take action even after becoming aware of the race. There's a great quote here from it. Mr. Massa is the rightful 2008 champion, and F1 and FIA deliberately ignored the misconduct that cheated him out of that title, states the letter. Mr. Massa is unable to fully quantify his losses at this stage, but estimates that they are likely to exceed tens of millions of euros. This amount does not cover the serious moral and reputational losses suffered by Mr. Massa, which I think is, like, anyone who was watching F1 during that time is 100% true. Like it like both seasons that Massa almost won are, you know, his trajectory goes in a whole other direction. Like, there's a reason why people really like him and feel for him, and a large part of that is because he is the kind of ultimate bridesmaid of that top tier of drivers, who was always as well seemingly paired with tricky teammates that he had to best, and almost did. My favorite part of this story, though, is the next line. Intriguingly, Eccleston has now said he could not remember giving the interview that led to Massa's legal campaign, and added that he hasn't been approached by Massa or his legal team to verify his comments. Quoted here, Bernie Eccleston, "I don't remember any of this, to be honest," the 92-year-old told Reuters. "I don't remember giving the interview for sure." So this is either Eccleston is you know, slowly departing this mortal coil and is losing his faculties in the way, in a slow manner, or he's like, I need to get the fuck out of this court case. I am too old. I don't remember. What interview? What? I
could have said anything.
Massa, never heard of the guy.
So, like, there's a couple things. First of all, I don't believe that he, like, I believe the interview he gave where he said, because he tells a story. It's not him. It's not like he got a date wrong. He tells a story that him and Max Mosley, who's no longer with us, but like these guys ran F1 together side by side, had a discussion about what they would do about the suspected Crashgate. The next year, when the investigation did happen, it was a moot point, and they wouldn't have had the big debate about like whether or not they have to do something about it because now there was evidence being brought forward. Like, they wouldn't have had that conversation. If the conversation took place, which is what he recalled in that interview, then it only really makes sense in the context of the immediate wake of Singapore and trying to figure out like what you want to do here, because the incident didn't pass the eye test even at the time. It's funny, I was listening to the interview Cyril Abiteboul did with Beyond the Grid a few years back, talking about the moment he knew Crashgate was maybe real was immediately after that race. They're having the post-race party, and somebody jokes with Flavio, you know, like, wow, I can't believe you ran a strategy where, you know, making Nelson crash the car so Fernando could just jump to the lead. And everyone laughs, and Flavio, pretty gregarious guy, doesn't laugh at all. And
oh my
like
God.
the sort of chill goes through the room as everyone is like, uh-oh, that's weird. That's weird that he didn't laugh. But the other part of this is, and because I've seen this reaction a little bit, like in comments on social media about like Massa's being a sore loser here, and that's Lewis Hamilton's championship. No one's contesting that. Massa's not contesting that. This has nothing to do with whether, like, you know, is Lewis an illegitimate champion? No, we all saw it. Like, Lewis won the championship, but the whole thing is the entire end of that championship is defined by the result of this race. Now, did Ferrari screw up the pit stop, and that's really what caused Massa to lose to end up losing the championship? Yes, it is. But if the results,
Timo Glock to blame?
But if the results like were stricken or something, or, you know, then things go really, really differently, and it does have ramifications for Massa in particular beyond that, because if he is the last, he would have been the last Ferrari world champion since.
Oh, wow.
They haven't had a better shot since then. He would have been it.
Yeah.
Alonso would not, they might not have hired Alonso. They certainly wouldn't have brought Alonso in to immediately like dumpster Felipe, effectively like marginalize him within a team that he'd effectively like come up in. And so like this all does change the trajectory of Felipe's career, particularly at Ferrari, irrevocably if this goes differently. So it's one of those things where, that's all legalese, or you can't quantify these damages. It's kind of beyond measure. It kind of is beyond measure though, because the difference between being almost world champion for Ferrari and being world champion is infinite.
Yeah, get your payday, Felipe. No one's going to begrudge you that. F1's doing all right.
Wow, another one to keep watching. That's why we love the sport. Just always something else going on. Motorsport may be extending to other avenues, it seems. This article from racefans.net, which pulls some info from a Reuters article. Motorsport is among the categories being considered for inclusion in the 2028 Olympic Games.
Oh my God. Move over, esports. It's time for motorsports.
Well, they surmise, RaceFans does, that this would be electric karting.
Okay.
Because it was included, that's electric karting, as a competition for the first time at the 2018 Summer Youth Olympics.
Okay.
And another karting event, electric karting event, took place at the 2020 Youth Olympic Games. So there are, 7 other sports here under consideration, and the Los Angeles 2028 Olympic Federation body something will, in the coming weeks, I think, select from those 8 one or multiple new sports to be added. The other 7 are
what we got?
Squash.
Okay, it's grapefruit. Not sure if it's worth, but sure, whatever.
Kickboxing.
Oh hell yeah.
Karate.
Nice.
Which I was
sorry, karting
in there.
We already in third place. Let's see if we can go lower.
Breakdancing. Which apparently the Paris 2024 Olympics has already included.
I can see that in Paris for sure. Although LA as well. Yeah, they're both breakdancing cities. So yeah.
Lacrosse.
I mean, you got to put hurling in before lacrosse, guys. Come on, lacrosse is like hurling for like wasps.
Wow.
So, funnily enough, lacrosse, native game, but stolen, like effectively, like substantially taken by wasps. It's a huge.
Is it actually a native? It's a
huge controversy out in the U.S. West that like native teams get treated like shit by like the rich ass private schools they play against, because those are who field lacrosse teams, and so it's like it's your game. And the local rich kids are being racist to you at your goddamn game.
All right, I'm in on original lacrosse.
Yeah,
or whatever it was probably called. It was probably not called lacrosse when it was indigenous.
Yeah, I don't know. Baseball, softball.
Wait, what?
Baseball slash
softball.
Yeah,
okay. Baseball would be cool. I mean, it would just be another one of the sports though where it's just America and Japan. You know what I mean? No. I feel like women's soccer.
Well,
the World Baseball Championship Classic was
right.
great.
Yeah.
Right.
Cricket.
I was about to say that means cricket's on the list.
Mm-hmm. And flag football.
Oh my God, that's weird.
Yes.
Okay,
that's American football.
So there's a sport that we do between Ireland and Australia called international rules. It used to be called compromised rules, and it's basically, it takes Aussie rules football, which is already just like a sport straight out of Final Fantasy, and Gaelic football, which is the Irish one of our 2 domestic sports, and they basically kind of just make a sport in the middle, and then Ireland and Australia play each other, and then they stopped televising it because there was so many fights happening on it. So they should do that, but with cricket and baseball. They should make this weird hybrid bat ball thing or something, and just put that in there.
Where there's like
mix it up,
wooden poles in front of the catcher or something.
Yeah, and and like but they have to run the bases. They don't do that in cricket.
Yeah,
and there's none of that. But also, it's in the crease is in the middle of the diamond. It's
and the pitcher can get a running start.
Yes, exactly. You've twice as many outfielders. The bullpen doesn't exist. They're all on the field.
That's right.
All the time.
You're on
other sport. The other sport they need to do, I don't know why, I just keep getting this thing on my YouTube recommendations, is have you seen like this like professional version of like tag?
Yes.
Where they have isn't it? So it's like two people, one is the person running and one is the person catching, and they have like I remember years ago seeing a version of this where they had like a literal living room that like people did it in, but now it's like a sort of
it's like a parkour course.
Exactly, a parkour kind of little box, but it's pretty tight.
It's like, tiny, yeah.
Yeah, I keep wanting to watch it, but then I'm worried someone's gonna like poleaxe themselves. Like
it does look like massive lower leg trauma is just like waiting to happen here, and yet it doesn't seem to.
No, they're just so elegant.
There's so many cool sports. Someone should make a YouTube channel just going around to different countries and finding their weird sports.
Right, yeah. It also just reminded me that means that we're getting the Olympics and the World Cup like back to back, basically. Because we're getting the World Cup in America, Canada, and Mexico. The next one, which is
it's like a solar eclipse for graft and bribery.
I know, it's great. Can't wait to not be able to afford tickets to all of this.
Also great, this article here from Racer Magazine.com. Racer.com. NASCAR is getting in on the F1 TV thing where they put up a whole bunch of more than 1,000 full race replays under a video archive called NASCAR Classics, and they're free. Classics.nascar.com. Oh yeah. And boy. A lot of them, I don't know if all of them have this, you can pull up like a little slide out window that'll tell you like, oh, here's something that happened. Here's an incident. Like here's the second yellow of the race, and you can just jump right to it.
Dude, you go to the page and they have the top 75 greatest races.
Mm-hmm.
And they just have like, here it is, man. Remember Michigan, August 51? Here's Daytona,
sure
62.
Look, this is,
I clicked on...
The kids need to learn about Richard Petty.
They certainly do. I clicked on Daytona 1974, and who was the color commentator but Jackie Stewart?
Oh my God, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Darlington 56. These look like you know, like those old 50s cars that were just made out of like steel.
I mean,
literally they were steel.
Those look like the bootlegger cars.
Yeah. Holy shit, I would not want to crash in one of these things. You kidding me?
Yeah.
Wow.
So we'll put a link to that in the show notes, but it's classics.nascar.com. You can just go watch them. Have a good time.
Every sports league should have shit like this. So many of us are stingy with back catalog, and they present it really badly. This is
They
great.
should have a Twitch channel. Just like NASCAR Classics 24/7.
Yeah. You can sort by year. You can sort by track.
This is how people get Richard Petty.
You can make Jackie Stewart eat
like
the
Bob Ross of
lollipop or whatever.
Yes.
Have a Jackie Stewart AI bot just going, yum.
God.
All right, that is it for news. We're gonna take a break.
Oh, cool.
And then we'll be right back with the track walk. And we're back.
Wow, that was great. I don't know about you, Drew, but those were some fantastic products, which I'm definitely more enthusiastic to consider purchasing at a later date.
Certainly, Danny. I'm so glad that we have a YouTube version where people can watch us just freeze for 2 seconds.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta blank out the waveform, man. It's so we know where to put the marker.
Exactly.
The add insertion point.
We're new at this. We're learning.
Yeah. Danny, let's learn the audience about Zandvoort.
Let me learn you about Zandvoort. Zandvoort is such a bizarre race. Zandvoort is such a bizarre track, but its inclusion in the modern era and it is quite a modern inclusion. It's only been back for, twice because it came back in 2020 and then we didn't run there because of COVID, I'm pretty sure. So I think this is only the third time we've had it back. Because while this track is classic and has been used in many Formula One movies, many of which we've covered on our Patreon, while its use in F1 goes back as far as Silverstone. And the first time they were racing on this one was, almost as far as Silverstone. First time they raced here ever was 48. Right after the war, right after the Second World War, people were like, let's just do some racing. We got all these machines. We're getting good at them. We like skirting close to death. It's become part of our society. We have all these empty fields. We need something fun. Let's go racing. And it had its first Grand Prix in 52, so pretty soon after the start of F1. It is still, I think, one of the strangest inclusions, and I think that is because the main reason I think Zandvoort is back on the calendar is because of a driver. It's because of Max Verstappen and all of these incredible Dutch fans that seem to just crowd out the stands in Austria and Spa and plenty of other places around the world. Zandvoort is a track that is super interesting. It is on the sort of seaside, the northwest coast of the Netherlands, not too far outside of Amsterdam. It's like a sort of a seaside village thing. It's basically like a go-kart track that was built over the sand dunes. It's in this very like undulating, twisty track. It even has a banked turn called Tarzan Corner, which is 18 degrees. It's tight.
It's so weird.
It's
one of the weirdest corners in F1. Like, there's kind of nothing else like it.
Sorry, but
it's very strange.
Was that banking added to make it F1 compatible? Because I feel like there wasn't a banked corner in the old layout. This is one of the weird things. They had to change it so much to make it compliant with modern cars.
They did, because there was a 35-year hiatus. It ran pretty on off, but like pretty consistently up until about 1985, and then was gone. And I don't know. I would say wasn't particularly one of the classic tracks that people were always sort of saying, let's bring it back. It was kind of a couple of runs down maybe in that conversation. And I know they did do a bunch of stuff to it, but I don't know exactly if that was part of it. But they can only do so much, and it's not a track that has, it's not very wide, and these cars have only gotten bigger, so it's not a track where overtaking is at a premium, let's say. 72 laps, so it's pretty nippy circuit length. It's a 4.2 kilometers. Sorry, I forgot to do the miles this week. And yeah, it's just like, I think as a viewing spectacle, I bet it's a great track to go to, because just great atmosphere, probably great vibes where it is. In general, the Netherlands is just a terrific place to visit. It's everything's public transport and food and everything's terrific.
2.65 miles.
Thank you. 2.65.
Yep.
Beautiful.
I think there's a train station. Isn't this also the one where they like banned car like parking at the, like, everyone has to train?
I wouldn't be surprised. That makes sense. That's a very like, yeah. I mean, this is like
they banned cars at the racetrack.
Yeah, they're probably saying you have to cycle. No,
and also in the Netherlands, criminals put the police in jail.
My goodness. Yeah. So it's a funny one. It's one every year that I'm like, kind of, all right, we're going there. I like to watch it. I think it's great for the Max fans. I'm not remembering too much interesting stuff out of the past couple of races there. So yeah,
I feel like
we'll see. Do you guys remember much about
last year's? Threatened to be interesting. I feel like Lewis was out of, like, he'd been shuffled to the front for a minute there, and it was like, can Max? And Max did it easily. But for a minute there, we weren't sure if Max would be able to do it and just blow past Lewis. It does feel like, I'm with you, Danny. Like, this track even looks small. Like, sometimes, like, scale can be hard to suss out with telecasts like this. But when you see F1 cars racing around this track, it does feel a little weird. Like, do they really go here? Do they fit? It's got that feeling you get a little bit watching them go around Monaco. I don't think it's a great sign that, like, there are times I wonder, would Formula E have a more entertaining race at Zandvoort?
Yeah, I remember there was a bit of overtaking it's got a really long DRS zone from basically coming out of the final corner the whole way down to and there's like a fake DRS zone in the back of the track where there's, it's basically just to close the distance leading up to that second DRS zone. But there's 2 points, detection points. And there was a bit of overtaking in that first corner. I remember, and if I remember correctly, there was a little bit of fighting going around that bank turn too. So
and like Alonso taking weird lines and stuff.
Yeah, he was. You're right. There was a bit of like, where's the downforce? Where's the grip here? Where's the like mechanical grip? As opposed to that aero. Which I think was super novel last year. But I do remember it mostly being a race where most of the action happened in that very small pocket. And to Rob's point, it's not a very long track, but also it's kind of like squished together. Like there's parts where you can almost see two sides of the race course, because it is quite like, it feels like a fairground where it's kind of been crammed in here because there's other shit around it, But yeah, I'd love to hear from people who have gone there actually. So if you're going and you have any tips, tips I guess are a bit late, but if you went this week, let us know. Podcast, yes, Shift+F1 podcast@gmail.com or f1.co/email.
Indeed. Well, something that might spice up the race this weekend is the weather.
Oh,
it's going to be a little cold, 66 Fahrenheit or 19 Celsius on
that's not that cold.
Qualifying day. 63.
Cold enough to mess with tires.
Cold for F1 standards, I guess.
That's fair.
63 or 17 Celsius on race day. Wind kind of high both days, 15 miles an hour or 24 kilometers an hour. And this is in sand dune areas, so
yes.
Watch out for sand on the track. But the real thing,
pocket sand,
is precipitation. And we are looking at race time, qualifying time, 31% and race time 13%. However, both of those occasions are preceded by much heavier rain. So either we are going to get judging from this, a wet start, but who knows how long that rain will persist past the start.
Wow.
Because this is, we're half a week away.
This might be one of the worst races to have wet weather on, I feel. Because it's so hard breaky in points and so mid accelerating, you know what I mean? Like mid gear kind of. I can put it this way. It's the type of track where people, if they want to throw it up the inside, they can give it a go. You know what I mean? Yeah. So if in wet conditions, when you're like, let's see if the grip's there, which I think is what we like with the weather, right? It's what you say.
You're selling me on it though, because if it slows the action down a little bit though, and suddenly you feel like maybe now there's less risk, because the thing that really cuts down on lines is the cars are going so fast that your possible lines going through a corner narrow really fast if you're in 100% speed. Yeah. But if it's wet and suddenly you're going slower anyway, some of those corners, especially that one with the banking with the weird apron that's flat down at the middle, and the entire thing looks like drift for extra points.
Also, you know what rain really loves? Banked corners.
Oh yeah,
nice little bit of like a nice fountain.
Yeah, check out that classic NASCAR races page and see just see how those titans of the wet handled the ovals.
They don't call them slick tires for nothing. Well, as we head into Zandvoort, here are the standings. Driver-wise, Max Verstappen is on top with 314 points.
Oh my God.
His teammate Sergio Perez behind him in second with 189. Fernando Alonso in his Aston Martin is third with 149.
Just about.
Lewis Hamilton in fourth with 148. Charles Leclerc and George Russell tied in fifth position with 99 points.
Wow.
Carlos Sainz in seventh with 92. Lando Norris is in eighth with 69.
Ooh, nice.
Lance Stroll in ninth with 47. Esteban Ocon in 10th with 35. Oscar Piastri's got 34. Pierre Gasly's got 22. Alex Albon has 11. Nico Hulkenberg has 9. Valtteri Bottas in 15th place with 5 points. Zhou Guanyu has 4. Yuki Tsunoda has 3. Kevin Magnussen has 2. And then the trio, Logan Sargent, Nick De Vries, and Daniel Ricciardo with 0. In the constructor standings, Rebel Racing is on top with 503 points. Mercedes, 247. Aston Martin's in third. Yeah. Aston Martin's in third with 196. Ferrari in fourth with 191. McLaren in fifth with 103. Alpine's in sixth with 57. Williams and Haas are tied for seventh place in the championship with 11 points apiece. Alfa Romeo is in ninth with 9, and Alpha Tauri in 10th with 3. If you would like to join the fantasy or the standings yourself, you can join our fantasy league using the link in the show notes. I hope all the show notes are formatted correctly, by the way. But we'll see about that. And now let us take it to the emails, Rob.
Actually, I'm going to throw it right back to you, Drew, because it's germane to some of those point standings conversations we had and where people are shaken out at this point in the season.
Okay. Shift+F1 podcast at gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. Zachary wrote to one of those endpoints. McLaren's mid-season resurgence obviously isn't the normal, but with Christian Horner saying this last update is the last one they'll be able to do, Williams making a jump, and Aston Martin obviously improving a lot in the offseason. I'm not sure if there was more to that sentence. To me, it's all signs that the cost cap is working. The top teams are struggling, and the midfield is starting to catch up, while the back markers are catching the midfield. Now, this isn't being seen in every team because development is hard, and so some will get it wrong. And of course, the downside is they'll need a whole season to change direction again. But to me, it's allowing the lesser funded teams to really hit a home run and actually hold the advantage it brings. Pre-cost cap, if they figured something out, the big teams would just copy it within a few weeks. But now McLaren gets to be a podium challenger for the rest of the season. Aston went from almost the worst to right in the fight, at least at the start, and Williams is an honest-to-God threat to score points. I believe that the midfield teams are used to operating within a budget anyways, so they're not suffering as much. The victims are the top teams. Merc and Ferrari seemingly are struggling with having to rethink how they budget and allocate for development and upgrades. They can't just buy performance as easily, and to me, it's more highlighting perhaps initial inefficiencies that those organizations had but didn't notice because they could simply outspend them. Ferrari seems lost, and Merc is constantly talking about performance gains they find which do not show up on track. Not to say Red Bull doesn't have the same issues, but if they got it right first and can hold that advantage, as the other teams catch up, they may find themselves in the same boat. I didn't like the cost cap at first, but I'm really coming around to the idea that it will work to close up the field. It's just going to take 3 to 5 years to accomplish that. Definitely agree with that last part. These things do not happen overnight. And yeah, I do agree with the sentiment here. And I think a lot of or my thinking at least, has been skewed at times because Red Bull is kind of running away with it. I think that, though, is the anomaly. I think, Zachary, you're right to kind of point out that the way that we've seen the other top teams, not be able to bounce back immediately is hopefully an indication of that. It may not be, like you said, but yeah, I think I largely agree with this. What do you guys think, Rob?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting case, and I think the thing Zachary calls out there at the end, where there's a bit of it may take a few years to see this play out, is really tricky. And doing this podcast has changed my relationship to the sport, right? It's very different having to talk about a sport week in, week out, and like react to it immediately. And partly for yourself, you want to be having interesting conversations, so you react really strongly to whatever's happening most recently. But it makes it harder to sort of step back and say, like, well, these things are meant to play out over the long haul. And I suspect that, like, once upon a time, I might have been more capable of saying, well, like, yeah, we got to give it time. I think I still am a bit skeptical that the cost cap is entirely working out in a way that is good for the sport, good for racing. But I will say, like, the way McLaren has been able to come on really, really strong midway through a season. You know, the progress that Williams seems to be making, despite the fact that James Vowles is rattling a cup asking for somebody to toss capital investment money into it. It is striking.
Lisa, can I have some software?
Yeah. I just need to track my inventory. But yeah, I think it is interesting to think about. The concept for this was meant to work over a period of years, right? That like it would sort of normalize as the cycles go, and you're, you know, if you're doing poorly, you might have a couple of years of more budget to sink into the car than the better off teams, the more successful teams. You know, or at least you would have more research time budget to sink into the cars. You know, that was the other part of it, is the limited aero like research and development assets that they would be able to deploy, which I think is the other
CFD and all that.
Yeah, which is probably the other part of the story, is that the budget cap is having an effect, but maybe what we're seeing have a bigger impact is the fact that the teams that were on the back foot are coming into a season with a lot more development resources that they can throw at their existing car than the teams that have finished high in the championship over previous years.
Yeah, it's you made a good point as well, Drew, about, you know, Red Bull. I do think, and we've had this in previous years with like Formula 1.5 and Formula 1.25 and all those Reddit communities and stuff. I do think a slightly less runaway Red Bull, and this kind of, you know, not to oversell,
would be a really exciting season.
Would be like the best season in forever. Like we're used to enjoying seasons based off of the fight at the front, and also maybe that is better. I don't know. Maybe we've seasons in the past, like maybe the Rosberg Hamilton season or the Hamilton Verstappen season, when that was mostly what we were focused on, and maybe the rest of the field wasn't as competitive. Maybe that's a better spectacle for television. You know, I'm not going to argue against it, but you know, me and Rob both went oof when we saw that Ferrari were just behind in fourth in the constructors, and like maybe it's just a way that we also need to look differently at the sport sometimes. But like, there's some really interesting stuff there, and for the first time in forever, everyone's got points. Like, we're not looking at that goose egg. Like, I feel like half the time, at least, there's one team that's never scored points. So, yeah, it's a good email. I think, though, it's like longitudinal stuff, right? We won't know until we just get more and more data, and, you know, the season rounds out, we'll have a better idea. Rob, should I take this next one?
Yes.
Nathan writes in, "Hey crew, long-time listener, first-time writer. I recently went to my first ever Grand Prix in Spa. Being a 25-year-old fan in Belgium, I thought it was about time to put some of my newfound disposable income to use to experience F1 in person before they make the regrettable decision of taking Spa off the calendar. Naturally, me and a friend opted to stay at one of the F1 campings, the Young Village, parties and arcade games included. Ooh. Instead of making the one-way 90-minute drive every day, especially since you have to add at least a couple of hours to that time, as the roads in the cozy little village in the Ardennes apparently aren't made to accommodate over 100,000 people every day. Saturday night, we decided to trek through the mud and leave our camping and its parties to try our luck elsewhere. What better place, after all, to attend a party than among the thousands of Dutch fans celebrating a sprint victory? We were right. Amidst all the luxurious Dutch camping equipment, illuminated by the fireworks popping off, was a DJ building a party with the hottest song of the evening, Supermax, which I just want to say is a chain of burger restaurants in Ireland, which successfully won a court case against McDonald's to keep its name because it was around before McDonald's. So shout out to Supermax. Yeah. Anyway, back to our friend Nathan's email here. Hearing this song, linked below with English subtitles in the description, and seeing the crowd of belting along got me wondering, what other bangers about drivers have I been missing out on? Has all of Monaco perchance gathered together to sing the praises of Leclerc before? Do Spaniards sing of cunning and shrewd Alonso? Does any Canadian care enough about Stroll to do so? I just now learned he's half Belgian, and we definitely do not. Or is this really just the Dutch being the Dutch after all? Please enlighten me. Kind regards, Nathan. And he has added Pit Stop Boys Supermax to the email there. We'll stick it in the description. I'm fascinated by this because I don't know any of these songs, but as a European football fan, this type of thing is super common, to have very particular songs that lots of people within your club know that nobody outside of the club would ever know. Like, as an Arsenal fan, there are multiple chants that I know. And even when I went to the Arsenal-Barcelona game in LA last month, me and my buddy, who used to go to the games in London all the time, were like standing up among the Arsenal fans singing these songs, and none of them know either. Like, it was geographically
interesting
located, yeah, because these aren't songs that like I would hear on an Arsenal podcast or I would hear on television. They're all songs that I know from going to the games and hearing people on the way to the stadium, in the tube, at the stadium, afterwards, in the bars. Those are the places where those songs happen. So I don't know any of these songs, and it's probably because I've never like camped out at an F1 race, but I bet there is. I bet there's loads of these bouncing around. But it's probably mostly like the European races. You know, it feels like it's connected to European sports in a way, because even in America, you guys don't have chants for things really, right? For like,
no, it's sports. Really embarrassing. We have defense, and that's it.
Right? Yeah.
College sports has a lot of them.
Okay,
every school
that makes
basically
sense.
has at least one song.
But that's very corny, like old school, like, you know what I mean? It's a very different sort
They're
of thing.
fight songs, yeah.
Right, like the band. And
very much like marching band adjacent. Yes, exactly. Like compositions for marching
That's pretty
bands.
Cool.
I have a little visual aid. This is going to work great on the podcast and on the YouTube. Here's the clip that our intrepid reader submitted. You'll see it on my phone here.
No, put it up to the mic so we can hear the song.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're just having a great time. They're having a great time. One of my favorite things is that, and it makes sense that this is I haven't listened to the song, so it sounds like it's their own one. But something that often happens is that you will have a player name for a football team whose name kind of sounds like an existing lyric in a song, and so you just replace some of the words. You know what I mean? You don't make up a song on your own. You just like make up a lot of these I can't say because some of them are not exactly, family friendly. There was one recently last year. One of our players, Arsenal's defender William Saliba, came back from a loan spell and started playing really well, and they just swapped his name with Tequila from the song Tequila. So the whole place would just go Saliba. So it would keep going on and on and on and on.
I think the A's did that with Miguel Tejada as well.
Oh, did they?
So,
okay, that's good.
Yeah, this puts me on an all-time great tweet. Truthbringer at Dave Loach 2. American sports fans, defense. British sports fans, all right, lads, I've just worked up a song to the tune of Debussy's Claire de Lune about an opposing player's drunk driving charge. I'll count us off.
100%. Like all the ones that I'm thinking of are ones like there was there's like one of our players, actually I'll do it to one of our own. One of our players, Mesut Ozil, has large eyes, let's say. And one of the songs was, his eyes are offside, Mesut Ozil, his eyes are offside. So it's that type of stuff. And that's like probably as family friendly as they get.
I seem to recall a Formula One driver song, and I want to say it was, Northern European. I'm thinking like Kovalainen. Or Hakkinen or Raikkonen. I feel like there was one of those out there, so people know it. Let me know. But the one that came to mind for me, and I don't know why I remember this, Roman Grosjean was in a music video for, I don't even know how to pronounce his name, David Guetta?
Oh, you're kidding me. David Guetta, who solved racism?
Okay, you know this man.
Yes, David Guetta.
Yes, his music video for "Dangerous"
Oh my God, you're kidding me.
features him beating Roman Grosjean in a race car.
So hang on, Drew, you do know David Guetta. You just may not have known who that is.
Okay.
DJ on top of the Empire State Building doing a tribute to George Floyd.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. But he's also like, he is like probably the king of like you know, a certain brand of like sort of, I don't know, like aughties trance house stuff. Like,
I
mean, I watched the music video and I got the vibe for sure.
That sounds incredible. Hang on, have you found the link for that?
Oh yeah, I'll
because that'll be in the show notes. But I need to see that. Certainly. But no, David Guetta did this amazing, like, is the classic example of like a performer trying to be like socially conscious but not remotely rising to the moment in a way, and so end up like being the most like facile and shallow like thing, which you know EDM lends itself to in the first place. Like, it's very hard to be somberly dedicate this track to anything. It doesn't matter. It's very hard to like do that and then be like, all right, now wait for the drop.
Fucking Darude Sandstorm comes on.
Yeah, exactly.
I also did like the collab that F1 did with the Chemical Brothers, where they taught that dog to drive a race car.
What was that?
Do you remember that?
I don't.
No.
Oh man,
is this a real thing?
Why do I remember this weird stuff?
Good news, folks. The video for the Pit Stop Boys Supermax top comment. A Pepe avatar playing this after Max wins his first world championship just hits different. 20,000
There you go. Beautiful. Live your life.
It's called Chemical Brothers. We've got to try.
Okay, there you go.
Yep, I will put that in the
official
show
Shift
notes
F1
as well. And I've sent both of these
playlist.
to you in the Riverside chat.
Terrific.
Yeah.
All right. I think I am up next. Gotten all distracted because this is just too much fun. All right. Hey, Shift F1. Rev up your engines for the third edition of Whistle Pig Whiskey's Piggyback Legends series. Wind tunnel trialed and G-force endured. Created with Alfa Romeo F1 team. Under embargo till August 28th. Oh!
What?
I broke embargo on the Whistle Pig.
We have to cut it.
No. Wait. No. It's the information. We did not reply to this email, so this part was not under embargo. The rest of the information they were going to send was about embargo. It was embargoed, but they're happy to ship a sample to us if we can give them a mailing address.
Okay,
you want some Whistle Pig rye?
Very interested.
Yes,
made with Alfa Romeo.
We're on a roll. That's our third. Then that's our third F1 alcohol drink thing.
Now we're moving into hard alcohol. Like,
yeah, no more.
Just really get into
your
this.
fancy lagers.
Just up and to the right.
Get this. Get those Heineken. If you drive, never drink things off the. Get
0.
those off
0.
the screen. All right.
So is the embargo about our impressions of it?
I assume there's a lot of information, like probably like when it's coming out, etc. But all we need to know, and we need to email this intrepid PR person who sent this through our website. We need to email them back.
I'm so glad.
Like, we need 3 bottles of this sent to our respective addresses. All right. Real email. Martin writes, given how wide the cars are, and some incidents being due to a car being one driver's blind spot, allegedly looking at you, Latifi, in Singapore 22, how come we haven't seen the prominence of blind spot detection from the civilian market make the jump to F1? As a motorcyclist, I appreciate when I see the yellow, orange, red light that appears on someone's side mirrors I'm going to pass, but as far as I can tell from the onboard cameras, it doesn't look like the F1 cars use that technology. I'm curious if there's a reason why not. Have they tried it in the past and the drivers ignored the warning since overtaking is the game? Is the technology itself too heavy or taxing on the cars? Or do the speeds the cars are moving at render such detection effectively moot? Bonus question for Danny. Any recommendations for teams to follow if I want to get into hurling?
Waterford, so you can be as depressed about the fact that we've never won an All-Ireland in 60-something years.
Okay, what if you want good vibes?
As me. What's that?
What if you want good vibes? Who's like who's the bandwagon hurling team?
Oh, Kilkenny, but don't. They're the Yankees. Don't.
Hell
support
yeah!
them.
Sounds like
also we are.
Martin. Sounds like you and me are the biggest Kilkenny fans you can imagine. Woo!
They're also
Kilkenny.
our biggest rivals. They're also Waterford's biggest rivals. Also, there's no teams. There's just the county that you're from. You know, this is tribal shit, man. There's no teams. It's just the names of the county.
Well, my people are from
Does Cork have one?
Cork's got a decent football team. I mean, the hurling team's good as well. Yeah,
Great.
Yeah,
My people are from Meath, and as far as I know, nothing's in Meath. Very agricultural.
Meath have a good hurling team, I think, historically. I don't know recent years. I've not too clued into modern GAA. As for the email from Martin, I mean, it's got to be, like, there's nothing superfluous on these cars, right? It's number one, it's got to be, they probably don't need them anyway, but like two, I'm sure anything that's adding any weight at all, they're like nah.
I think it's a sporting thing. I think it's a driver aid, you know?
Yeah. That's fair.
I guess you could consider it you know, a safety measure, but I don't know. I don't think it's a weight concern because they put, you know, TV cameras on there, whatever.
I think you're both right.
Say everyone has to have one. And
it's so the sport says you got to have the TV cameras on there, but the engineers are not going to, like, they would really resent both the space you'd have to make for whatever. I assume there's some sort of like LiDAR system that is working in concert with blind spot monitoring. I don't actually know what powers those things, but I also do think this is a sport that is really, it had its crossroads moment in the active suspension days and like launch control and all that, and really did make conscious choice. The drivers drive the cars unassisted.
Yeah. And
I think there's an argument to be made that just where cars have gone, some assistive technology is probably a good thing here. But philosophically, the sport's really taken a hard line against that stuff. Like, your head should be on the swivel. Skill issue.
Yeah. And this shouldn't be an issue, but I think just the profile of the cockpits and how small the side mirrors have gotten and has kind of made it an issue. Like, we've had a couple of these incidents that have just sort of emerged from that, but I don't know. I think there are always genuine mistakes when that stuff happens. It's not affecting racing in any way, so nobody's clambering for a solution to that problem. There's plenty of problems they're trying to fix without adding some other ones, you know, non-problems to that.
Like climate change, they've almost got it licked. Vision
almost
zero.
Got it, man. Almost there.
I will say,
get David Guetta on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I will say just a quick side note, because this is something I'm curious about, and if readers have answers for this, I'd be interested to hear them. So I watched a lot of IndyCar over the break, and IndyCar, it's so good, folks. But you know what is one of the real, like, a thing I've really turned out to appreciate and enjoy about that series? It's actually really rare that a car is retired on the track unless it, like, physically can't continue driving. They refire the cars. Right. And the AMR safety car, safety team will drive out there, and if, like, even like a few weeks ago at like Indy, there was a multi-car pile up first lap. They restarted like 2 cars and got them back in the race. And I think Dixon might have been involved, might have gone on to win that. But
was that the Detroit one?
No, that was at the IndyCar infield race. They raced there. That was their NASCAR crossover weekend. But
oh, cool!
It's like, it turns out that seeing people just like pulled out of the race and like they're done for the day is less fun than having them go to the back of the grid and continue to try to scrap it out.
Mean, F1 used to. Do you remember F1 used to do it? Do you remember that crazy Spa race in, was it 95? The one where they had to do 2 starts and like half the field got wiped out both times, and they just went
third
back.
Car.
Yeah, exactly. Go get the what they used to call it. It was like a kick car.
Spare, yeah.
Yeah, there was a word though they used to use. I forget what it was. Whatever. But yeah, get the spare basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you know, we've definitely stepped away from that rather than never had it.
But also, like, the other thing it does, it speeds up clearing incidents, because like it's right. If you can just get a car back under its own power and like send those guys on, you do not need these massive safety car periods to get some sort of like car hauler out there and get the car extracted. Like, you can just send some dudes out there with a starter and get the car going. And I was sitting there, I was like, this seems way better. I feel like I'm seeing more racing at IndyCar races than I do at F1 races currently. And also, it turns out I really like seeing good drivers who just got unlucky with a lap 1 incident still get a chance to like do a recovery drive. And I'm just curious, like, why F1 has been this like, well, them's the brakes, and immediately like if half the field gets wiped out on lap 1, that's just what happened. Even if like all that really went wrong was some cars stalled. But I am super curious if people like have any insight on why F1 has like particularly draconian like relationships to like car recovery and allowing people to continue racing.
Yes, please write in. Shift+F1podcast@gmail.com or f1.cool/emails. You can also hit us up on the socials. There's so many socials. Just look in. Just throw up them X's. Look in the show notes. That's us around the internet. Should we take it around the world of racing?
Let's race around the world.
That's right. The NASCAR Xfinity Series is at the Daytona International Speedway in Daytona Beach, Florida, for the Wawa 250 powered by Coca-Cola.
Love me some Wawa. Wawa represent. Good stuff. Miss it already. Take that, Sheets.
Formula 2 will be joining Formula 1 at Zandvoort Circuit.
Ooh.
The IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship is at VIR. That's the Virginia International Raceway for the Michelin GT Challenge.
Are you VIR rated, Drew?
I'm not.
That's it. There. Yeah, it took a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's some airplane humor.
Yes. Let's see. IndyCar.
Rob got it. There we go.
IndyCar is at the Worldwide Technology Raceway in Madison, IL, for the Bommarito Automotive Group 500.
Bommaritos.
Yes. Super GT is back at Suzuka Circuit, located in Ino, Suzuka City, Mie Prefecture.
Fantastic prefecture.
Indeed. We've got the Craftsman trucks at the Milwaukee Mile Speedway in Wisconsin for the Clean Harbors 175.
Keep your harbors clean. Scrub down there. Get the bleach out.
And we got NASCAR.
Where we at?
Also at the hallowed grounds of Daytona. For the Coke Zero Sugar 400.
Zero sugar, all the taste.
That's
no
right.
aspartame, I don't think. No caffeine.
Just water. Just bubbly water.
Bubbly sugar water. Cocaine in it.
Yep.
Zero cocaine in Coke Zero. I think.
Also Formula 1 this weekend. Friday. Race cars are back, August 25th. Free Practice 1 is at 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time on ESPN2, followed by Free Practice 2 at 10 o'clock a.m. on ESPN2. Saturday, August 26th is Free Practice 3 at 5:30 a.m. on ESPN2, followed by qualifying at 9 a.m. on ESPN. And the race, everyone, Sunday, August 27th at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on ESPN. No one has asked me this, but sometimes I say ESPN2 the deuce. And I say that because when I saw race cars on television in the 90s, that's what they called their channel. Every time they went to a commercial break or came back from it, they said, "Welcome to ESPN2 the deuce." And it was all written out in that like scratchy 90s font, all lowercase with like a scribble underneath it. The deuce.
The deuce.
It's the whole like, dodgeball, ESPN 8, The Ocho. Yeah. That wasn't just all that, like they are riffing on actual ESPN doing that to their own brand.
I love it.
Danny, that's what's happening this weekend. What happened on this day in the history of Formula One?
On this day, August 23rd in 1964, it was a day of firsts, gentlemen. It was the first time Austria hosted the World Championship Grand Prix, which was won by Italian Lorenzo Bandini for Ferrari, his first and only Formula One win. It was also the first Grand Prix for Jochen Rindt, who became the first Austrian to race in F1. So,
wow.
great times for Austria. It's been a pretty good Austria day so far. Didier Pironi was at the center of one of the biggest disputes in Formula One history when he took a last gasp win away from Ferrari teammate Gilles Villeneuve at the 1982 San Marino Grand Prix. Villeneuve vowed to never speak to Pironi ever again and kept his vow when he was killed just 2 weeks later. Today in 1987, Pironi himself suffered an ultimately end. They wrote that wrong, not me. When he was killed, racing a powerboat in the Solent. The boat flipped, and his 2 crew members. Why are you laughing?
That's, every one of these injuries is just a cavalcade of carnage and tragedy. I knew the minute you mentioned I know. I was like, oh shit, here we go. It's going to be the Villeneuve thing.
The minute he said he took it away from his teammate Gilles Villeneuve, I was like, I'm pretty sure we have read the Gilles Villeneuve side of this story on a previous day. I'm pretty sure.
Did we just have bad luck, or is every one of these?
There's been a lot of F1 drivers. There's only 365 days of the year, and it's a dangerous sport. So you just,
But also, let's be real. Like, dying because you flipped your boat is a pretty iconic F1 driver way to go out. Like, unfortunate, but also, this is who a lot of these dudes were.
Well, just in case, like, I was intentionally not looking at you guys because I was worried I was going to start cracking up because I knew what your faces were going to be like. But let's just, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Let me just say that, okay?
Okay.
Sorry, so he's flipped the boat. Okay, so we're mid-flip right now. Okay, it's okay. This happened like 50 years ago. The boat flipped, and his 2 crew members, journalist Bernard Giroux and Jean-Claude Greneau, were also killed. The sweetness is coming. We're out of the valley. We're coming out of the hill. We're crawling out. It's bittersweet, let's say. 2 weeks later, Pironi's girlfriend gave birth to twins. She named them Gilles and Didier.
Wow.
On this day in my favorite book, Tragedies of Formula One.
Oh, okay.
Fuck, man.
Thanks, Danny.
I'm sorry. I didn't read them ahead. I don't read them. It's not like if I read them ahead of time I could do anything about it.
Right, it's the day. What are you gonna do?
It's the day. You got it. Hey, look, man.
Oh, today nothing happened.
Today
nothing happened
died.
at all.
No tragic. No. It's always a fucking speedboat. It's always something. It's always these people just have that life, man. They're just like they're out there, touching the edge.
Graham Hill was like, "Everyone get on my plane. We'll be there in no time."
I know, right? Yeah, exactly.
Well, final thoughts, Danny, heading into the Zandvoort weekend.
I hope it rains.
Yeah. Rob?
Yeah, rain and cold weather sounds fantastic. Honestly, I think we deserve that for Zandvoort.
We certainly do. What a fitting way to come back to Formula One after all those weeks off. If you would like to support the show and get access to all of our bonus episodes and the ad-free podcast and the official Shift+F1 Discord, you can do so over at patreon.com/ShiftF1. Have a good race weekend, everyone. We will see you all next week.
Meow.